Hello guys, welcome to my channel and to my art studio. I don't know if I have ever shown my art studio on YouTube, but here it is. And today we will take a closer look at a specific area of this room, the place where I keep most of my art supplies. May I present to you the drawers of doom. These drawers used to be pretty organized, but over time I have accumulated a huge amount of art supplies. Definitely more than a normal person needs, so it got a little crowded in there and I just stuffed everything in where it kind of fit. So it's not very organized anymore and therefore it's time to organize it again. And since I enjoy having a look at other artists organizing their art supplies, I thought I'd take you along with me, so make yourself comfortable while I try to conquer the chaos. To be honest, these drawers are a mess right now, however I still try to keep the basic organization. The first drawer holds my office supplies and some other non-artsy stuff, so I won't show you the contents of that one. We will start with the second drawer, which holds different kinds of pencils as well as fine liners. The drawer below is my marker drawer. There are mostly alcohol and acrylic markers in there. And the next one is my watercolor/gouache drawer. And the one in the very bottom is my acrylic painting drawer. As you can see, that's quite a lot of stuff already, and I just want to quickly mention that you definitely don't need that many art supplies. And I don't want to brag or anything, this is just the result of not being able to focus on a single medium, being subscribed to an art subscription box, and years of buying and being gifted art supplies at a higher speed than I would need to use up the materials. And you can definitely be a great artist if you only have a single pencil. So let's start by taking everything out of the drawers. As you can see, this drawer is where I keep lots of different kinds of pencils. Some of them are in my pencil case, but most of them are just thrown in there. There are graphite pencils, charcoal pencils, colored pencils, but also metallic markers that definitely do not belong in there, as well as some glue and the worst masking liquid I have ever tried. Sorry Upgrade, but it's just horrible. After taking all of the individual pencils out, there were slowly coming my pencil sets into view, like matte graphite pencils, Arteza and Faber-Castell colored pencils, and some random stuff like stencils, X-Acto knives, and 3D sticky tape. And if you think, wow, that's a lot, well, yes, you're right, this is a lot, and I was a little blown away by the amount of stuff on my desk. I started to roughly put the stuff into groups to get a better overview, and then continued with the next drawer, my marker drawer. And this is actually the drawer that made me want to organize everything, because there were all kinds of markers thrown in together. And whenever I was looking for a specific marker, I found everything except for the specific marker. Mostly I would grab acrylic markers whenever I was looking for alcohol markers and vice versa, and that drove me crazy. And there are also some super random markers in there, like porcelain and glass markers that I bought for a specific project and have never used again since. And there were even more random finds, like this yarn I use for crafting and a rubber glove, which has actually its purpose, but it's just in the wrong drawer. In this drawer are so many types and brands of markers that you'd probably get bored if I showed them all individually, so here's an overview of what I found on there. We are only looking at the contents of drawer 2 here, but I think it's pretty clear already that I have a serious art supply hoarding problem. Now let's go to the watercolor and gouache drawer. And the first thing I'm grabbing here is my collapsible water container that I only got recently, and it's so cool. Next is a watercolor palette that I recently got and a palette for oil painting, eyedropper tools, water jars and brush cleaner. Followed by my watercolor sets. The big one is by Winsor & Newton and was the first one I bought, and actually the first paint I bought after my super long art break. So fun fact, this palette and some fine liners started my art journey 2.0. Next up we have some watercolor markers that I barely use at the moment, and some gouache paints, and even more rubber gloves. And now let me tell you why. These are for protecting my hands when using glass etching paste. If you don't know what that is, you basically apply a stencil to glass, put the etching paste on top, then wait for some time, rinse it off, and ta-da! The design is etched into the glass, which is actually pretty great for making personalized gifts. Here are some liquid watercolors and watercolor medium that looks like unicorn blood to me, and which I therefore used to create a Harry Potter inspired potion ingredient bottle. If you're interested in that, I'll link the video somewhere here, but I originally bought it with the intention of adding some sparkle to my watercolor paintings. Also, don't belong in here, my oil paints. I kept them wrapped in the paper because I was scared to confuse them with the gouache paints because they are the same size. And something that belongs in here, watercolor crayons. I didn't know that these existed, but they were included in an upgrade box. However, they smear so much and get your hands dirty the moment you touch them, so that's why I kept them also wrapped in paper. What's also interesting and didn't know exists is liquid pencil. This was included in an upgrade box as well, and I remember that these stink really badly. Let's speed this up a little. I found a lot of random stuff in this drawer, and in the end I finally made my way to my gouache paint set by Arteza, as well as my watercolor pencils and some more random stuff. And the last drawer is probably the most organized one because it actually holds almost only acrylic paints and acrylic painting related stuff. But there's also some gouache in there, and since it's acrylic gouache, it qualifies also as acrylic paint. So it somehow belongs in there too, I guess. As you can see, there are paints of different brands, but I don't have a favorite here. The most colors come with the Arteza set, but when buying colors individually, I mostly buy the Bösner student grade paints because there is a Bösner near me and the paints are absolutely fine. So here are all the art supplies from these drawers. I said it before and I say it again, I have a serious problem and I think I don't have to go shopping for art supplies for a long time. Oh, and there's another set of alcohol markers that comes in a very nice box, so I keep it right next to the drawers. And this actually did not fit in the marker drawer anymore. I bought these little boxes to fit in the drawers, and when I bought them I thought that one set would be enough, but when I saw these piles on the floor and on the desk, I knew that this was not enough at all. I started sorting the materials into the boxes anyway and was super happy to finally separate the alcohol markers from the acrylic markers and put them into individual boxes. I used a third box where I put in all the random markers that fit neither category, like my Tombow ABT brush pens, which are insanely long in comparison to other markers, but they actually fit into the box, so very happy about that. I bought one of these box sets before and had actually collected my Sharpies and Copic refills in one box already, so I left them in there. Next up, watercolors and gouache, and I knew that I didn't have enough boxes, so I narrowed it down by putting only my watercolor tubes and liquid watercolors into a box, and my non-Arteza gouache paints together with the liquid pencil. I also used this opportunity to test if I can still open all of the Arteza gouache paint tubes, because the lids sometimes get stuck and the only way to open them is using pliers. This drawer still looked kinda messy when I was done putting everything back in because I had to put a few things on top, but it's still looking better than it used to. In this drawer, I changed basically nothing organization-wise. I kept the Arteza box in the middle as a divider and put the big tubes in the back again, but I noticed that some paints kind of turned into gooey lumps. So I took my time to test out the paints that I did not use recently to find out if they were still fine. And I had to get rid of quite a few of the cheaper paints. If you're wondering why I squeezed out so much paint, sometimes the paint is not that gooey in the back of the tube, and I wanted to make sure that I only get rid of the paints that are actually not usable anymore. I saved the pencil drawer for last because, to be honest, this was the most boring one to go through. And I even found more art supplies and a few upgrade boxes that were still sitting on a shelf. There were so many individual pencils to go through, and I had no box left, so I tied up some pencils with a rubber band, but the rest had to go back into the drawer just like that. In the end, there was still some stuff left that didn't belong into any of these drawers because those were rather craft supplies, which I put in the shelf with my craft supplies. Yep, crafting supplies, don't get me started on that, that's another problem for another day. After literally hours of sorting, everything was more or less organized, and this is the final result. Let me know in the comments, if you had to pick one of these drawers to create an artwork with, which one would you pick? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye!